Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're at. My name is Dan Hawkins, Director of Sales and Marketing here at ThingTech. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. We're going to give everyone just a few minutes to get logged in here, just about a minute or two. So please stay on hold and we'll get started here in just about a minute. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. For those of y'all just joining us, we're going to be getting started here in just about 1 minute. I want to give some folks the time to get logged in here. So stay on hold and we'll get started here momentarily. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Hawkins. I'm Director of Sales and Marketing here at ThingTech. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us for today's webinar. During today's webinar, we'll be demonstrating ThingTech's Transit Asset Management Platform as a Service, a tool designed to help public transit agencies comply with FTA's upcoming TAM requirements. ThingTech's Transit Asset Management tool is a very deep asset management maintenance tool designed to help organizations better manage all of their assets, whether that's rolling stock, vehicles, facilities, and more, to help really provide better visibility into asset life cycles from purchase through disposal, streamline and automate maintenance on those assets to ensure they're in a state of good repair, and ultimately help with decision support and long-term capital planning. So very excited for all of y'all to join us today. Just a few housekeeping items before we do get started today. Firstly, all of your lines are currently muted, but we do strongly encourage you to submit any questions that you have as we're going through our session today. Those can be submitted in the chat of GoToMeeting, and we'll definitely address those towards the end of the meeting today. Also, this session is being recorded and will be distributed to the entire group after this meeting. So if for some reason you have to jump off a bit early, we'll be getting you a copy of this recording a little bit later today. And finally, this recording will be posted to our website at a later date, www.thingtech.com. So certainly if you have other colleagues or folks that may be interested in watching today's webinar, do encourage them to check out our website where we'll be posting a link to the recording from today's session up there shortly. So before we get started, I wanted to quickly introduce today's host. Today's host is Tim Quinn, CEO and co-founder of ThingTech. Tim is a transit industry professional with over 20 years of experience deploying hundreds of very successful intelligent transportation systems projects across the country. He's the former EVP of a major transit software company based here in Atlanta. And Tim's background prior to joining ThingTech and working in the public transit space, Tim's an undergraduate and graduate from UGA and Georgia Tech, respectively. So very excited to have Tim and his expertise today. Tim's going to be providing a guided tour of the ThingTech Transit Asset Management application, as well as discussing a little bit more about the background behind FTA's final rule on TAM requirements. Also, just wanted to give you all a little bit of background about ThingTech. So ThingTech, at the end of the day, was founded to address the needs of asset-intensive organizations. What we do is we combine IoT, enterprise asset management and maintenance, as well as mobility to help generate actionable data and enterprise asset intelligence. We work with organizations where visibility, accountability, measurability, and performance has either been lacking, siloed, or simply non-existent. ThingTech helps organizations at the end of the day to connect the dots, unlock their data, and generate actionable enterprise asset intelligence, which ultimately helps to contribute to both the top and bottom lines of those organizations. So with that being said, I want to turn things over to Tim and give you a little bit more of background into TAM and the ThingTech Transit Asset Management Solution.
Thank you, Dan, and welcome to the webinar. We'll get started. We're going to kind of have a hands-on interactive demonstration today, so I want to really make sure we have time for that. But just to frame kind of what Dan discussed, we have a suite of applications designed to manage the entire life cycle of the asset, equipment, machine, so forth, kind of our suite of ThingTech software. We're going to focus today on what we call ThingTech Enterprise. This is a web-based enterprise asset management system designed specifically to meet the transit asset management requirements of USDOT. But it also plugs in other components to assist in the management of these assets, whether it's real-time connectivity to get not just location, but engine diagnostic data, utilization data such as odometer readings or engine hours, to really drive the preventive maintenance program and automate that process. So simply connect into a device and capture the odometer or engine hour. That would actually drive your preventive maintenance schedule. And then we also have, of course, mobile apps that complement that. So we can access any of this data via a mobile phone, where my things are in relation to where they should be. And then we put a layer of analytics on top of that. So it's a very deep and comprehensive solution that allows you not only to scale, but also to grow with the solution as your business requirements grow as well. And Dan mentioned IoT, or the Internet of Things. That's the world that we live in. That's what we're trying to really deploy out to our customers in the industry. And really, at the end of the day, we connect things, and that can be an asset, equipment, facility, and your mobile workforce. So what that also allows us to deploy technologies and let not only things at the edge, what we call the edge, out in the world that we're collecting data from, but also allows those things to get smarter, to really start making decisions on their own or automating some processes around that. So that's kind of some of the framing of who and what we are. But really to talk about, why the need for TAM, and everybody probably on this webinar clearly understands the impending TAM compliance requirements that are due in the fall. Not just the planning component, but also the asset management decision support tool that would be that's needed to assist in complying with those requirements, as well as any of the NTD or National Transit Database reporting requirements, as well as any state of good repair requirements. So we started out really focusing on those requirements for the transit industry to really assist and partner with our customers to help become compliant. So the things that we do now, FTA compliance, control your maintenance costs, improve overall operational efficiency. We want to help plan, estimate, and schedule the work from a work order management perspective, automate your PM and inspection schedules, and automate your capital replacement planning, and ongoing TAM planning requirements and state of good repair requirements. We can also now extend out to other things by connecting into the asset or the engine for things like predictive maintenance. So if we're capturing data from an engine or an asset out in the world, and that asset could be a HVAC unit, or it could be a vehicle, or it could be a power generator. If we're capturing data, diagnostic data, we can start doing predictive maintenance. And if we have history about how much you're spending on your assets, we can also start to project those out to start coming up with predictive maintenance schedules to help on the planning and budgeting side. We do talk often about the Internet of Things, or the industrial Internet of Things, which is a really massively growing market. And then we also layer in things like machine learning, mobile strategy in terms of making the things that are giving access to all your users to this type of data and these systems through a mobile phone or a smartphone or a tablet for data collection, field service optimization, inspections. and then tying that maybe back into a smarter city platform. When we talk about our asset management solution, what we want to talk about to the left are really the basic components, a full-blown enterprise asset management decision support tool that includes maintenance management and work order automation, parts and inventory, capital replacement planning, and analytics, reports, and dashboards. To the right are other things that can extend into that platform: cost center, grant management, incidents and accidents, tire management, and fuel management. So if we can pull all this data together in one single container to really have a single place to manage any and everything about that asset, from the time you purchase the asset to the time you dispose of the asset and everything in between. We're built on what's called the Force.com platform, which is the world's largest B2B business application exchange. So it gives us tons of flexibility and other things that we can plug into the solution. And at the bottom, we really, just real quickly, we can extend it for real-time asset utilization, diagnostics, and predictive stuff. So we can scale up and extend to things like a full-blown real-time asset health monitoring, asset management solution. So we're not just manage the assets where they are, how they're behaving, delivered to a mobile phone, whether it's where I am out in the world on my mobile phone or where the asset's located. If those are your work orders you want to deliver to that. Help in terms of the field service automation of how to get to those assets and maintain them and inspect them. And then put a layer of analytics on top of it. That's predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics, and contextual analytics. So the platform is very scalable and but also very easy to install and implement. So let's switch over to a hands-on demonstration and kind of walk you through the depth and the ease of the application. And we're going to kind of look at a real-world solution. One of our earlier customers located in Western Massachusetts that is really an early adopter of the transit asset management requirements in Berkshire, in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, called BRTA, or Berkshire Regional Transit Authority. They're a small urban solution, but has a lot of different things out in the world that need to maintain and manage. So let's take a look at kind of some things, how that system's configured. And what we want to talk about is, this is the user interface, of course. This is when I log in, this is my home screen, this is very configurable, but allows me to get to things very quickly based on what I want to get to. So this is to the top of the tabs that we're maintaining and managing. This is kind of what the maintenance staff would take a look at. But before we jump into here, I want to look at other apps. So we have a series of apps that are plugged in based on who you are and what you are, whether you're a mechanic, whether you're a parts inventory manager, whether you're an executive that just wants to look at dashboards, whether you're the administrator of the system. But to kind of give you an idea of what the breadth of this application is, again, we're at our home page. Now, this is, again, just telling me, here's all my work orders, here's my maintenance schedules, here's all the assets that I have. Of course, I can drill down to any of these to get more details on that. But we can also look at any recent records that I've reviewed, whether it's my inventory, whether it's my planning replacement schedule. But really quick ways to get to data, as well as search for anything. Now, the other thing I of course, I want to mention is, when we talk about setting up or configuring the system, we have very strong tools to import any data from another system. So whether it's a spreadsheet, whether it's migrating from, say, an old outdated maintenance system onto our platform, we can import that data very, very quickly, map it, bring that data in. So within a day, you could be technically up and running with the application. Now, if we look at the management of kind of the other things, of course, we have concepts of accounts that I'll come to. You can manage your grants. You can manage any devices or things that you have attached to that asset. You can manage your work orders, your employees, your locations. Very easy to get to the information. Now, when we look at the home, if I look at accounts, for instance, as an example, so now we have all the accounts that we interact with. These are, particularly vendors that we buy stuff from, inspectors that we use for third-party inspections. So if I click on here, we'll just simply see all the different accounts that are in our system that we can easily drill down to and start to look at who are our partners, what are they doing, where they're located, what's their contact, how do I reach out to them. Very, very easily to get to that information. Same thing with grants. So, what grants do we have? How do we manage the grants? By the way, now this is also a requirement of the TAM requirements is start tracking where the assets, from what grant were the assets purchased from, and how is that related. So obviously, if we click on a grant, we can start to see the information about the grant, how much it was, how it's funded. This is 5307. This operating PM and equipment vehicles is the project information. This is the project ID. It is approved. So there's all that information that we know about the grant that can be associated with the assets. Same thing with budget line items or activity line items can also be associated with this system. But let's get the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about what a mechanic might want to access. So if I'm a mechanic, I may only see the stuff that a mechanic should see. So in this case, I'm only looking at assets, work orders, in this case, wash bay services, the configurable and customized tab, any tire management, any parts management. So now, if I were to start to look at all my assets, I can get all my assets through this tab, or I can even start drilling down on assets here. So if I want to see all my assets, so I can search for an asset very quickly, or I can easily drill down to that asset. So I click on this asset. It's going to take me to the Assets tab. And this is going to give me all the information that I might need to understand about the asset in a very easy to use fashion. So we can see that we have the basic asset information. This is the fuel system ID that we're connecting into the Fuel Master solution to get fueling information. When we purchase it, what department does it belong to, what's the description, what type of asset is it, how's it classified via the FTA classification system, what's the asset element, sub-element, subcategory. So we speak very well to the FTA classification system as well as the FTA term model. But you can see there's a lot of data about our assets or the assets that we're managing, vehicle data, any grant information, any financial information in terms of how it's being depreciated. So we can see all the financial information that's related to this asset. The condition of the asset, of course, which is very important. This is marginal, the life cycle rating of 1, which means it's past useful life. You can also associate investment priorities with your assets to come up with a plan for how I should replace the assets over the life of the asset. Any warranty information, any images that you want to associate with that asset can also be applied here. And then any detailed or related records about the maintenance schedule. So every asset will have a preventive maintenance schedule. If it's a vehicle, it might be a Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule C, and so forth. If it's it could have a maintenance schedule or a meter associated with, I got an inspection, so I need to inspect this every 365 days, or I need to change the oil every 5,000 miles, and associate work orders with it. So I can easily associate work orders with this asset. You can see the work orders that we have associated with it here. If I hover over, we'll start seeing details of that asset. You can see that this is in progress. This is also in progress. And then historical. This is actually pulled in and imported from a historical legacy maintenance system. This way, we can actually capture all the historical costs to maintain this asset over the life of the asset. So, how much parts did we put on it? How much labor did we put into it? And start putting trends and pattern analysis on top of it to start helping us determine when is the right time to replace the asset. So it may be costing you more money to keep an asset in service than it does to actually just simply replace it. And also, there's, of course, parts and inventory associated with this application, which I'll talk about as well. So to get to assets, it's very easy. Again, I can search for an asset here, whatever it may be. I can also create lists, what we call list views. So if I want to see only my vehicles, you can start to see only vehicles. If I want to see only my facilities, only my equipment, only my infrastructure, say you're a light rail operator. So all that data can be easily brought into the system. Notice we capture all the odometer readings. So this drives our preventive maintenance schedule. We can drill down to any asset. So again, if I wanted to drill down to this asset, again, one easy single place to get to information about that asset. Now, so we have a very strong asset inventory solution. Now, we put workflows and alerts on top of that data to notify us when things need to be done or take action on. So there is a notification center. So here we can see, some task reminders that we have set up, generator semi-maintenance, sprinkler quarterly inspection, registration of an asset, whatever that may be. So it helps us really make sure that all of our assets are maintained properly, they're registered properly, we're doing the things we need to make sure we keep in state of good repair. Now, so again, this is really the only thing a maintenance person would review or have access to. So if I'm a grants manager, I may only see the grants. If I'm a parts and inventory person, I may only see the parts application. If I'm an executive, I may only see dashboards and reports, which I'll talk about. But as a maintenance, or a mechanic technician, I want to see all my assets. I want to see potentially all the work orders. Now, these are work orders such as, show me anything that's completed today. Show me everything that's in progress right now. What's not started, what's open. This is user defined. You can create as many lists as you want to get the data very quickly. So if you want to see what's in progress, you can simply say, hey, these are in progress. Simply click on it. And now we can see the details of that. It's not started, it's started. It's in progress, and then when it becomes completed, this would be signed off as completed. The one thing I want to mention is this workflow, the work order process, or the work is user defined and customizable. So you may have a 5-step work order management process. You may have an approval that needs to be inserted into that process that can be easily configured. So this allows us to make sure we know the state and status of all the work orders and make sure that the assets are being maintained properly. So a work order, of course, has a description, who it's assigned to, what's the meter reading, any comments, other related information. It also has work order line items. These line items are, in this case, this is the parts kit for a Schedule A, preventive maintenance Schedule A. So in our parts and inventory component, you can create what's called part kits, and those part kits can be associated with the meter. So every 5,000 miles, I do this, and it needs this type of part and this type of labor. Schedule B might need these parts and these labors and these repair codes associated with that. So we can easily see that information here. Okay. Yeah. As we look at other areas within the application, such as tires or parts or inventory, we'll see a very common look and feel. So I can easily add a part to this work order. I'm not going to do it. We can add labor to this work order. We can easily do that as well to update the information and also know the quantity. So now what we're capturing is all the costs associated with that work order and all the labor associated with that work order. So now, and by the way, you can also make those fields required if you want to, so that you enforce the data that you need to capture to understand really how much it's costing you to maintain your assets over its life cycle, which we've seen has been a historical potential issue with some of our customers in terms of the historical data that they captured. A lot of times there was no labor information, there was no cost information associated with the parts. Now, so very simply, manage your assets, have an asset inventory and all the related data that you need. One thing I'll mention is that the type of data that you maintain and manage is purely up to the customer. This solution can be configured in terms of what fields you want to display on the asset record, and you really only manage the data that you need to manage or that you're required to manage. So some of our customers manage a lot of pieces of data about the asset. Some only manage a few, but you can always scale that up as your business requirements grow. If I'm the parts and inventory manager, I may use a different app with a different set of field objects. So I might use the, say, parts and inventory component. And now notice I have different objects that I can actually maintain and manage. So we can manage everything from the purchase order to the work order, all the parts, all the inventory. We can manage our own parts, by the way. you look at here, these are the parts that are in my warehouse or my parts store or my storeroom, but we may also have vendor parts. These are simply parts that we purchase from a third party where we really do not necessarily care how much quantity they have on stock. That's really their problem. Let's say Napa, for instance. I buy a lot of, if I want to assign vendor parts that Napa provides, I don't need to worry about the inventory transaction or the debiting or crediting of parts inventory in my storeroom. If they're in my storeroom and I need to manage and maintain them, I need to know what's in each store, what bin they're located in, how much do I have, do I need to reorder? That's important for the maintenance of the asset. So, and if we manage the parts and inventory stuff properly, such as this, we'll start to see, again, related lists. Here's all my part kits, recently viewed, any reorder lists that I have, any transmissions that I have. These are all user defined based on what you want to understand. So if I click on all, these are all the parts that we currently have on quantity, what's the value, quantity value. Again, this is also user defined. So if I click on, say, this particular part, we'll start to see information about it. It's active, here's the historical data, line items, any transactions that we ever had with that part. And here's the part details. So we have the part ID, we have the part details, the inventory, unit value, all the inventory dates, and any barcodes associated with that. So in this case, we can print off the barcode, and we can scan barcodes when the parts come into our store. We can scan them when they go out of our store. And I'll also discuss an app that we built that allows us to deploy this very simply to the mechanics out in the bays, out in the storerooms, where they can actually access the work orders very simply, start them, complete them in a very simplified fashion using a smartphone or a tablet, say a ruggedized tablet, or a kiosk in the storeroom. So again, very, very easy to access that information. So if I'm looking at maintaining and managing all my assets, which is very easy. So you can see here, the asset. We're also going to manage all your asset categories. So you can break these down for your NTD reporting by, is it rolling stock? Is it equipment? Is it a facility? Is it infrastructure? So you can also then break it down to the other asset classification levels, such as, is it an element, sub-element, and so forth. But we also see the status. You see, is it in service? Is it awaiting disposal? So we can get this data very, very quickly. We can sort it, filter, and group it very, very easily. We can manage all our maintenance schedules. So we can create maintenance schedules. If I look at, say, all my maintenance schedules, these are applied, not only tell me what's past due, but also I can assign these to assets so that when a new asset comes in, we assign it to a maintenance schedule. So in an automated fashion. So I buy 10 new vehicles. Those vehicles get assigned a maintenance schedules as a part of the asset class. And then we can now track all your preventive maintenance schedules as well as your corrective work orders are assigned to those assets. So this is set up once and then assigned to the assets. We also have all your parts and all the parts and inventory management that you need to make sure that you have the proper stuff in your store to maintain those assets. These are the inventory transactions, work orders, and work order line items, as well as POs. So we manage all your purchase orders and the things that you need to manage from how you buy your assets, as well as the stuff that goes on your assets. If you have third-party vendors, which some of our customers do not even have in-house maintenance staff, they outsource 100% to third-party vendors. That's easily manageable here as well. Tire management is also a new component of ours, where you can manage all your tires, when you replace them, when you rotate them, what's the depth, the pressure, the tread, and all the related information. And we'll come back to reports and dashboards towards the end, but all the data that we're collecting through the entire life cycle of the asset, maintaining, buy the asset through your grant, purchase it, put it into service, assign it a maintenance schedule, make sure that the parts inventories are managed properly, make sure everything, exactly what's in your storeroom, issue and manage your work orders very proactively. And really what we're trying to do when we talk about work orders is make sure that any work order associated with preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance, inspections, or safety are logged into our system very easily. Okay, so you have full visibility in what work should be done, when it's scheduled, when it's planned, and what's the status of that work. And again, all that data can be accessed via a mobile app or a tablet, and it can also be pushed out to users for notifications, such as workflow rules and alerts. So if you can, as an example, maybe create a workflow rule, an alert that says, anytime a work order that is scheduled to be completed and it's more than 7 days past due, send the maintenance manager an email or a notification to the smartphone saying that, hey, here's the work orders that are overdue by more than 7 days. If it doesn't get completed in 14 days, escalate that to the director of operations. Now that person we've escalated that to a workflow rule, and now they have it on their phone saying, hey, these work orders have not been completed on my assets, and it's been more than 14 days. Why? So ultimately, you take action on those. Okay. Now, so very, very straightforward, very, very easy to understand and get to the information. But again, we want to make sure every piece of information or data about the asset is stored in one single location, whether we generate the data or whether we go out to other systems and bring the data in through what's called an API. So you may have to connect to a different fueling system or a fuel card, or connect to another enterprise system, such as a purchasing or financial system, to bring data in from that system. We can connect that through what's called an open published API that we support. Now, as I move down the list, the real big thing is, and one of the biggest values that you'll see in our solution, is the ability to cut and dice the data, the ability to really create reports and create dashboards that generate real insight. And the reporting and dashboard component on this platform is very, very flexible, very configurable, very easy to use. So we train our users on how to build reports and build dashboards. So in this case, we can see all the recent reports that we've accessed, any private reports, any public reports. I can see all our reports, okay? And there's sharing rules also that can be associated with this. So sharing rules being, only this person can see this type of report, or only this department has access to this type of data. Now, as an example, here's some recent reports. In this case, it's asset inventory, the financial information. So I click on it, and we'll see the data that's presented. This is the summary view of it. I can easily expand it to see the detailed view. If I want to put some graphics on it or some visualization on it, I can simply hit this guy. It's going to start giving me a different view of that. Simply hover over that data to see what's going on with that information. Now, if I wanted to edit that or customize that and save it out as a different report, you can easily filter that and show me all my assets. Purchase date is this, and this is a standard report. So this is a locked filter, but I can easily edit this report. It's going to take me to a tool that allows me to really access all the data that we're managing about the asset. So you can see all the different pieces of information that we have available to us. Disposal date, disposal method, ending depreciation. When did I rebuild the engine? If I wanted access to that information. What's the FTA replacement year? What's the FTA useful life benchmark? And I should say, from a performance management and KPI perspective, we create what's called asset classes, and those asset classes are then assigned useful life benchmarks, and those useful life benchmarks are used in your NTD and FTA reporting requirements. Okay, so we can easily start to create different views. We can create different filters. We can customize this. We can save it out as a different report. So there's a lot of flexibility in how we give our users tools to be able to get to this information very, very quickly. Okay, now we kind of go back to our reporting tab and look at all reports. We'll start to see tons of different types of reports. So activity line item detail, depreciation reports, tasks and activities associated with that asset, condition summary, condition by category. So here's all my excellent, good, bad, and ugly, whatever it may be. But it's very easy to get this information, analyze it, and visualize it. The other thing I should mention is that you can also publish this as on a schedule. So you could email these reports every quarter on Friday to this group, or show me only the data that's changed every week. Again, here's the asset categories that we have broken down, and here's all the details. If I wanted to drill down to a facility, I could easily do that. If I wanted to drill down to a vehicle, I can easily do that. If I wanted to open up in a different browser, I can easily do that as well. And here's the details of that record. Okay, all the devices, work orders, any notes and attachments. And this is very interesting because now we have when we sold that. This is a PDF of the document that we attached to the record. And also things like if I'm out in the field inspecting data using our mobile app, you can take a picture of that asset. So let's call it a bus stop or a shelter, and it says damage. You want to take a picture of it, you can take a video of it. You can do that on the mobile app, associate the asset, and bring that into the system. Okay, so if we also want to look at, say, dashboards, let's go back to our dashboard view, and let's start looking at a different way to visualize data. Now we're looking at all our dashboards, but this is my recent dashboards. If I want to look at a TAM executive dashboard or a preventive maintenance dashboard or an inventory and utilization dashboard, I simply click on it, and all the related data that I really care about as it relates to transit asset management and the NTD requirements are going to be displayed. My capital needs projected out. This is my 5-year capital plan. My term condition rating by asset category. My assets past useful life. Again, just hover over. I have $8.2 million of assets past useful life, which is probably one of the biggest challenges associated with public transit now. Is there's too many assets and too many things that need to be replaced. There's more assets that need replaced than there is money to purchase those assets. So really, then really the challenge is how do we maintain and manage those assets so we drive as much value and derive as much value and life out of those assets to make sure that they're safe and they're in proper working order. Okay, so we can see number of capital assets purchased over the last 2 years, and how much we paid over the past 2 years. Again, and here's my condition summary by asset category. Again, this is user defined. We ship with over 75 standard reports and many, many dashboards, but we then also train our users on how to build their own reports as well as how to build their own dashboards. So and a real simple one like an inventory and utilization dashboard, a little bit different look and feel. If we're capturing real-time utilization data, the utilization trends by group would be here. When I say real-time, if we're connected to the engine and capturing engine on, engine off, odometer readings, or engine hours, this would show us the utilization of those in near real time. The condition assessments, fleet by model and year, fleet by make and model, and condition assessment. So tons of way to get to data. We can also break it out by group and location as well. There is a integration into geographic information systems. So if you have ESRI data that you want to overlay on top of your assets, whether it's facility information, bus stop locations, there's a plugin that we have that allows you to easily map these in both ESRI GIS or in Google Maps. So that's simply an additional plugin that we provide. So we can leverage the amount of the massive amount of data that you may have captured through your GIS department or the city and county GIS department. Okay, if we take a look at a few other dashboards, we'll look at kind of all the dashboards. So, asset inventory, driver behavior, utilization, parts and inventory dashboard, preventive maintenance, and executive a summary dashboard. Just to get an idea, kind of curious. So now we're just looking at parts and inventory. Now, parts inventory, we have total active parts, the value of those parts, inventory value trends. This simply represents when we imported a bunch of parts and inventory data from another system, parts used over the last 60 days, tons of information. And by the way, this is all real-time data. This is as soon as we take 20 parts out of the storeroom and put them onto our assets, those parts and inventories are deducted, and we know in near real time exactly what we have or should have in each of our storerooms. We also know how much we're buying from third-party vendors such as Napa or another vendor that you purchase lots of parts from. So again, this is all real time, and every piece of this data that we're looking at, by the way, we can put workflow rules and alerts and notifications on to proactively generate actions. And as Dan mentioned in his opening description of what we do, we feel it's a big part of our job is to really create actionable data. Actionable data is exactly what it sounds like, is you need to reorder parts, or next week we're going to run out of a very important part for our maintenance programs, or these 20 inspections are past due that the federal government requires us to do, that we need to go ahead and get those done, or this is a very important work order that's over $10,000. It has not been done, and it's keeping us from putting that asset out on the road to provide better service for your ridership and your communities. So very easy to get to, very configurable, and very flexible. If I were to show you our configuration tools that what we use, our consultants use to work with our customers, what you would see is user interface and configuration tools that allow us to really model not only what data you want to manage about your assets, how you manage it, and the processes you use, but we manage that so we can really wrap this application around your rules and your processes so that we model those very effectively. So what we're not trying to do is force our process, what we think is a good process, force that on you and make you change your internal business requirements, if that makes sense. Now, one thing I do want to take a look at is, not just we kind of discussed the asset to the work order to the maintenance schedule, the reporting and dashboards and parts inventory, but what about a tool that we can provide to your mechanics in the shop that gives them the ability to simply update data very, very quickly? So we actually wrote a little app that really allows us to, I'm going to call maintenance shop app, that allows us to really get here, this guy. So imagine this on a tablet, and we have different assets. We have all the assets in the system, of course. Okay, let's say I want to know what's going on at the bus garage, whatever that may be. I can show jobs associated with that, see that it's not started. So it's the maintenance staff person that's responsible for doing this can have access to that with just very limited data, where they can then go in and start the project. They can hit complete to the project. So all they're going to do is use a tablet or a smartphone to update the status. Is it started? Is it completed? Is it in progress? And then you update any work order line items associated with that, such as quantities and time. Now, when we hit start, when we actually start to do the job, we're simply going to say start, and that's going to start the timer of how long it takes us to do that. And when we finish it, we'll finish that job. So we capture now planned versus actual. So we planned this job to take 2 hours, but it took 4 hours. Or we planned for this preventive maintenance schedule to use these parts, 10 parts, but we used 20 parts. And we thought it was going to take 2 hours. It took 4 hours. So we now start capturing and managing planned versus actual as it relates to your parts and your labor, to start getting insight into how to improve that or to adjust any of your planning metrics, if that makes sense. So we've looked at the entire end-to-end maintenance and management of assets. You can see it's very easy to use, very simple to get started. There's really very little there's no infrastructure or servers or licenses or things that you need to maintain and manage in your office or in your shop. It's a cloud-based system. Simply access the URL, log in with username and password, and your transaction management solution is available to you. And it can scale up to other things as we discussed. So as we mentioned, you can start with the transaction management compliance, asset management and maintenance and materials, parts and inventory, and then scale to other things, whether that's real-time utilization, real-time diagnostics, predictive maintenance algorithms, machine learning algorithms to really take a look at the past 10 years, create a baseline, and then start projecting that forward to give you much better insight of where your assets are, what's the state of good repair, and how to maintain and manage those assets. So that's there's a lot of details, of course, and we're not going to go into all the details. It's very simple, very easy to use, and it meets 100% of your FTA TAM compliance requirements and reporting requirements. I'll turn it back over to Dan. There might be some questions, but Dan, I'm turning back over to you, and then we'll answer any questions if they have any, if the audience has any.
Tim, we do have a few questions from the audience today. First question is, does your system currently support linear assets or assets with parent-child relationships?
Yes, it does. So that's what we call it. So linear relationships. So there's a couple things. So if it's let's talk about linear, and say linear assets, saying being a rail, a light rail, heavy rail, whatever it may be. We have the ability to model, manage all your linear facilities. And that linear facilities being it's called light rail system. We also manage that based on milepost information. So there's what we call linear referencing component to the system, how we maintain and manage those linear facilities. And I say milepost, for folks that maintain and manage rail infrastructure, they tend to work from milepost information. So we need to do preventive maintenance at milepost 10.1 to 10.2. We can also visualize that linear facility using a geographic information system like ESRI by plugging that in. We have a direct plugin and API integration into ESRI, so you can also visualize that. So that's that question. And then from a component perspective, so you have an asset, and then assets can have what we call components to that asset. So you may have a facility that has multiple components to that facility, HVAC systems, electrical systems, sprinkler systems, whatever it may be. Those assets can be rolled up to the parent asset. So there's a very easy way to see and view the hierarchy about that asset.
Great, thanks, Tim. One more question that came from the audience in regards to setting up agencies in a hierarchical fashion. So, for example, if there's a Department of Transportation that has sub-recipients that they want to manage within a singular application, does your system currently support the capability to set up roles and hierarchies depending on those different agencies?
That's a great question. Yeah, yes. So if you're involved, say, with the state DOT or MPO, and they're doing a group plan, and they want to, say, have 5 or 6 different agencies underneath that group plan, the system is hierarchical. So there's a parent account, and that parent account can have children accounts to it. So let's say state DOT is the parent account, and there's 50, say, rural transit or other transit systems below them. Those can be set up as child accounts, and those children roll up to the parent. Now, a child account can also have children underneath that. Think of that as a grandchildren, if you will. And those roll up to the child, and then all the children, grandchildren, and the child records roll up to the parent account. So now, based on your user role and permission, you only see the things that are associated with your agency. The agency above you in the hierarchy can see anything below it. But as a rule, you can also set up sharing rules where maybe you want a child wants to share that asset with somebody above them or below them, they can do that as well. But we can model the hierarchy very well, and we are deploying to many DOTs across the U.S. where that model is actually being deployed very effectively.
Great. A few more questions for you, Tim. So obviously, FTA's final rule on TAM requirements is steadily approaching, and it has a lot of people scrambling a bit to meet compliance requirements. So from the beginning of a project to the end of a project, how long does it take your average organization to get up and running with a tool like this and get to a point where they are within compliance for FTA's final?
Yeah, let's break it down based on the complexity or the maturity of the organization. So let's say it's a small, medium-sized public transit system, say a rural or even a small urban system that doesn't do, say, rail or have linear facilities infrastructure. The time to provision, set up, import the data, and get those particular systems up and running is less than 4 weeks, assuming the data is available and we can import much of the data into the system. For a more complex system that is much larger, many more assets, many more facilities, and has, say, linear infrastructure such as rail or heavy rail or light rail, the implementation time period is probably between 1 to 3 months. And when I say that, that's the full adoption of the system. Modeling the processes, configuring the solution, importing all the data is a technical exercise, and that's usually done in a few days. But getting the data in the system, training the users, getting people comfortable with the system, because it is a potential new way of doing things. The adoption can take another 4 to 8 weeks to get fully rolled out and adopted. So to answer the question, it's probably on an average 1 to 3 months for any system, very, very small to very, very large. The technical provisioning of the system, and Dan, the technical provisioning of the system is done in less than an hour. It's just set up, ready to go. It's an empty shell, ready for data to be either entered or imported. But then capturing all the other data and so forth and putting in the system is what may take a little bit longer in terms of make sure we have all the related data that we need to make the proper decisions.
Great. One more question here. Could you talk about the support that your team provides for organizations that may not be familiar with enterprise asset management tools? How do you go about working with public transit organizations to ensure the success of their projects?
Yeah, great question. We work really closely. We have a team of customer success associates. Their single job is to do exactly what their title says is customer success. So we work really closely with each agency to number one, identify the data sources that we need to connect to and import data from to really create the baseline. And the baseline is, what is your asset inventory? What are your categories that you need to manage per FTA, and what are your asset classes? So we work very closely with our customers to help them with that. That's also part of the planning process, and all that needs to be documented, defined in your transit asset management plan anyway. And we actually work with our customers to do that as well. But then we also work with our customers to associate the performance metric requirements. So there are useful life benchmarks that have been defined by FTA for each asset category that we need to assign those useful life benchmarks to. Now, those useful life benchmarks, there's minimums that have been defined already that you cannot go below those minimums, but you can go above and beyond the minimum in terms of your useful life benchmarks or ULBs. So we work with our customers to say, number one, out of the box, we ship out of the box useful life benchmarks with what the FTA's minimums are, but we work closely with the agency to customize those for their unique local operating environment. And then we also, once we get that kind of that baseline infrastructure set up, we then train the users on how to access the data. And on the maintenance side, we train the mechanics and the maintenance staff on how to how to actually implement a work order, execute a work order, and the processes associated with that. So we work very, very closely end to end from, converting the data, configuring so that it becomes compliant for FTA, and then training the users on how to use it to make sure that the maintenance programs, inspection programs, the state of good repair programs are being executed. And then at the end of that cycle, we provide all the reports and the dashboards and make sure those programs are being executed at the management and executive level. Once the project is accepted and in full production, we then have a customer success support center where our customers can call us 24/7, 365 to answer questions, get assistance, get additional potential training. They can access via a 1-800 number, email, or a customer portal, multiple fashions, or even just send us an email. And actually that goes directly into our portal and to get help on how to maintain and manage the system. Now, the one thing I will say is part of the subscription to this system, it is a subscription-based solution, is all the maintenance associated with it. When I say maintenance, all the bug fixes, all the major upgrades and minor upgrades. So since it's a centralized application, cloud-based application, as soon as we make upgrades to the system or add new features to the system, or let's say FDA changes some compliance or some reports or NTD reporting requirements, our users will see those instantly with no effort on their side. It just magically shows up. We're getting better at trying to educate and train our customers through some new programs that we're going to be rolling out for monthly webinars that are specifically designed for customers only. Training sessions, product updates, case studies of what other customers are doing to leverage the system, so that there's an ecosystem of learning and an ecosystem of sharing knowledge. So it's kind of long-winded, but that's our approach. And our single approach is to make sure our customers are successful and they use the application as is designed and adopted as needed.
Great, Tim. Thank you very much. We sincerely appreciate your time today. I'll take the last question, which is very, very simple. It's how do I get started? It's pretty simple. We definitely encourage anyone that's interested in exploring transit asset management further to reach out to myself or visit us online at www.thingtech.com. We have transit asset management consultants standing by and would be happy to spend some time with you talking about your specific needs for a potential project and going a little bit more in depth with specific challenges that you may have within your organization that we can help address outside of simply complying with FTA's upcoming rules for transit asset management. Net, just to kind of recap today's meeting. So today we reviewed ThingTech's transit asset management tool, deep enterprise asset management tool designed to first and foremost help public transit organizations comply with the upcoming FTA and USDOT requirements for transit asset management, but also a tool to help really streamline operations and improve processes as it relates to the management of your rolling stock, vehicles, facilities, all of your assets, the maintenance of those assets, the life cycle of those assets from purchase through disposal, and ultimately providing decision support tools and long-term capital planning to help improve operations. Definitely appreciate all of you guys joining us today. We will be distributing a copy of this webinar a little bit later. So certainly if you have additional questions that we didn't get to today, we'll address those on a case-by-case basis. But thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.